Hope you guys are having a good start to your Wednesday. For geometry today, after you guys took your quiz yesterday on congruent triangles, today we're going to build on congruent triangles and now look into what can we say once we have been able to prove that a triangle is congruent to another triangle. The big thing that we're going to talk about today, it's called CPCT congruent. So it's a big acronym, kind of side angle, side, and so forth. We're going to look at CPCT. The C stands for corresponding. P stands for parts. The second C stands for congruent. The T stands for triangles. And then it's going to be congruent. So corresponding parts, which remember we talked about corresponding parts of triangle. There's 3 corresponding sides. There are 3 corresponding angles. It takes a combination of 3 of those to prove 2 triangles are congruent. So once we use those 3 of those parts for congruency, we then can say the rest of the triangle, the other 3 parts, one side and 2 angles, or 2 angles and a side are congruent because they are corresponding. So let's pull up the notes and we'll take a look at a couple of proofs that we can use here for CPCT. Excuse me, here's the first proof that we're going to take a look at. So we want to be able to use congruent triangles to our benefit to then go back and say that our proof statement, side AB on the left-hand side is the same as side CD on the right-hand side. So here's our picture. We are not told anything is congruent. Instead, we're just told that this is a parallelogram. The left sides AB and the right side CD are the same. They're parallel. And then we're also told that the top and the bottom, BC and AD, are also the same. Or excuse me, they're not the same, they are parallel. So let's get into our proof here. We start with the given. So we can mark that AB is parallel to CD, and BC, give it 2 arrows, is parallel to the bottom side, AD. So, given. Now, the reason that we want to know that we have to prove angles are congruent. Remember, parallel lines, we can use corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, or even consecutive interior angles. We can say they are the same, they are congruent, or supplementary because we know the sides creating them are parallel. So the next part of our proof is going to take a look at angle ABD. If I grab my marker here, ABD is this angle in the top left-hand corner is congruent to CDB, the angle down in the bottom right-hand corner. Why are these 2 angles congruent? Well, remember, they're formed by parallel lines. Angle B is below the transversal, the diagonal line. Angle D is above the transversal, so we have alternating sides. And they are between the 2 sets of parallel lines, whether you look top and bottom or left and right, they are between those. So this is an example of alternate interior angles. Our next given statement for our proof is looking at angles ADB and CBD. So what we're doing, if we go back up to our picture, we are now going to look at the opposite sides. ADB is now in the bottom triangle in the bottom right corner, and DBC is in the top left part of the excuse me, the top triangle. So these 2 angles are marked in green. How do we know they are congruent? Yeah, they're very similar to the ones we marked in red. Just on opposite sides of transversals, we flip-flopped them. So our reason is the exact same as what we had up above, alternate interior angles. Statement 4 says BD is congruent to BD. So because these two these two triangles are touching each other, we know that that shared side that's in both triangles has to be congruent to each other. So if we come back down to our proof, we know they're congruent to each other because of the reflexive property. So out of our 6 parts of our triangle, 3 angles and 3 sides, we've proven 2 angles are congruent. We've proven 1 set of sides are congruent. So that gives us our 3 parts. If we look at our picture, we have angle, side, angle. The side is between the 2 angles. So therefore, our congruency statement of these 2 triangles is angle, side, angle. So this is what you took your quiz on yesterday. You got to this point where we could say these 2 triangles are congruent. Now we're going to go 1 step further. We need to say that AB is congruent to CD. So let's go back up and take a look at our picture. AB on the left-hand side needs to be proven that it is congruent to CD on the right-hand side. So this side we're highlighting green. To that side we highlight in green. They are opposites of each other. So they're corresponding parts. If we look back at our triangle congruency statement, you'll see AB and CD are in the same spots. ABD, AB is the first 2 letters. Triangle CDB, CD is also the first 2 letters, which also confirms our statement that they are corresponding parts. So we'd say corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Now, if you want to, you might have a little bit easier time that you're handwriting this versus trying to type this out. You can actually write out the symbol for congruent instead of typing out the word. So what we want to do in this section is be able to prove the triangles are congruent like we did. And now say parts that we couldn't prove congruent, we now can because of this CP-CT. So I have one more proof for us to take a look at. This one starts from scratch, so we have to do this all on our own. Our figure here looks like a kite in a way, where A would be the tail and C would be the very front of it if we're flying it up in the air. What we want to do is prove that triangles BCE, the very bottom left, is congruent to DCE, the small triangle in the very top left. We will not be able to do this right away. Instead, what we're going to have to be able to do is prove the big triangles are congruent, and then we'll be able to prove that the small triangles on the left are then also congruent. So let's begin our proof. And we can start with the given. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, and angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. And our reason, this is given information to us. So you have these 2 angles. Get a pen here and we can demonstrate this. 1 and 2 are congruent, while 3 is congruent to 4. Next, if we take a look at side CA, try to trace this over here with my mouse. That's why it's a little bumpy and crooked. That line CA is in both triangles. So that's what we need to do next in our proof. After we have the 2 angles are congruent, we now can say CA is equal to CA. Our reason, as I'm sure many of you are ready to blur it out, because it's the same line in both, we have the reflexive property. Well, looking at this now, two angles and a side, we now have half of our triangle proven to be congruent, so therefore we can say they are congruent to each other. Triangle, if we go from left to right, CDA on the top and CBA on the bottom are congruent. And you have to insert your triangle symbols. I can't do that here just typing. It takes too much time to get through that. But these two triangles are congruent because we have angle 1, side CA, and angle 3. Congruent to the bottom, angle 2, side CA, and angle 4. That's an example of angle, side, angle. So there's the first part. We're halfway home here. What we need to know because of these two congruent triangles, our lesson today talks about CPCT. We need to figure out what do we want to say is congruent to each other to try to get this small triangle in the top left the same as the small triangle in the bottom left. Saying angles D and B are congruent doesn't help us because the angles we're looking at are smaller angles. We also don't care about side AD or side AB because those have nothing to do with our two triangles over on the left. So that leaves us with the important task of proving side CD is the same as side CB. So if we come back down to our proof, our fourth statement, we want to say CD is the same as CB. And our whole topic so far today, CPCT, and I'm going to put an extra C on the end of it to stand for congruent. So I'm going to do something different down here. Hang with me here. So we have these two triangles here. What I want to show you, here's angle 1 and angle 2. We just proved these two are the same. If we come back up to our picture, we're looking at CDE and CBE. You'll notice part of AC that we said was reflexive is still reflexive. Now it's the CE. So if I come back to my little new picture here, there's CE that's on the midline and CE that's on the midline. Those two are congruent to each other. So my fifth statement, CE equals CE. We're getting a little redundant as we're using the reflexive property again. But now we have three parts in our small triangles. We start with the original sides from the given, the CPCT on the hypotenuse, and we have the reflexive side in the middle. So now we can successfully answer our proved statement by saying triangle CDE is the same as triangle CBE. If you look at the green markings below, how can we say this? Two sides are congruent with the included angle. So that's an example of side, angle, side. The only way we could ever prove these two triangles, CDE and CBE, are congruent is by using CPCTC, by proving that the big triangles have a corresponding part in the smaller triangles. So I know it's kind of tough here. I'm not available to be able to answer questions for you. But hopefully I was able to give you enough information that you can get going on this and take a look at what you need to do for your homework. to be able to get your work going for tomorrow here. So again, tomorrow I'll be back. If you have questions, mark them, bring them into me. I'll be more than happy to help you out. Just a little bit tough here right now while I'm in Columbus and you're up here at school. But again, hopefully this is better than just sitting around not doing anything. Your homework is posted over on the assignment board on the left-hand side of the room. It's from the book on page 232. And you can go ahead and take a look at those questions that are marked up on the board. I also have something a little bit different up there. I would also like for you to make your own proof. I know you're probably rolling your eyes right now. What in the heck is he making us do? But draw a picture and make it somewhat similar to the two proofs that we did here together in our notes. Label it with whatever letters you want. And start with as little given information as possible. And work your way through it, because if you can make your own proof and show you know how to get from point A to point B, when I give you proofs from homework or in notes, you're going to have a little bit better of an understanding of it if you can actually go off and make your own proof from scratch. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy. If you can, make it something like 4, 5, 6 statements and reasons long, just enough to get through it there. And I'll be looking to take a look at those then tomorrow when I come back, and we'll then go on to some special triangles to finish up chapter 4 on Thursday. So thanks for watching this. Hope you guys were able to get a little bit out of this. Enjoy the rest of the day. Make sure you guys are behaving for your sub bonus, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good Wednesday.